I haven't done a video in a while, and I've noticed that I've been getting some subscribers, going on about 100 now. And some of you guys are probably like, why have I bothered subscribing to Steve? Because he never posts videos. So um, I haven't had a chance to post videos. So, as of 2018, July 15th, this video is kind of an overview of what Steve's trying to do and the progress that he's made. So right now we're staring at this very crude workflow of the components in place that potentially need to be in place in order to build our own, kind of customizable chatbot framework. And you've seen some of my other videos, and there's other people on the internet that are kind of doing some relatively interesting things. But I'm trying to follow what Google has been doing, and at the same time, I've been trying to learn how this stuff works. I kind of got involved with chatbots back in the 90s, with Java and things like that, and they were really crude, and but I was always fascinated by them. Now, what's been happening lately with Google's APIs is we are getting slowly closer and closer to where we could build our own intelligent chatbots using deep learning, things like that. So part of what this video is about is for new people that are subscribing, and for the existing people that are like, what the heck's going on? Why am I not seeing videos? I do have a full-time job as a software developer, so I only have so much time at night. But we're going to go through a whirlwind of stuff right now to kind of get people up to speed with, if they want to do some of the same things I'm doing, this is the software you're going to need. So the last couple of months I've been taking some online courses with the natural language understanding. That's this piece right here. The video that I did about a year ago with C# calling the Google speech to text API was kind of a crude little app, and in C#, and it still works, but what I had discovered was that just getting the raw text back from Google, it's not going, I believe, through any kind of what they call a language model. There isn't any dialogue, context, or anything like that. This is this next piece right in here that you can either do online using Google or Amazon's tools, or you could do it offline or in real time, but locally. And that's where Rasa NLU comes in. And there's still some high-end concepts that I'm learning, and I'll show you in a minute the two courses as far as natural language understanding is concerned. So now, just recently, Google has put out the text-to-speech synthesis API. Now, what this means is that the text that we send to Google to convert into voice is going to go through their WaveNet, Tacotron, whatever you want to call it, engine, and it's basically state-of-the-art computer voice synthesizing. So that was kind of a breakthrough watershed moment for me. I do have some Python code. I don't have some C# code that can exercise it, but again, what the text that you are sending to that engine needs to be going through a dialogue engine first, so you're having a coherent conversation. So this last little arrow down here is either going to be C# or Python. There there is some other code that I have in place right now because it looks like it's going to be a mismatch of C sharp and or Python code. Maybe this code over here will be all Python, um, but right now it's kind of a mismatch, and it's kind of coming together. So um, anyway, I've got some tabs up here on what I'm doing. The Raza part, uh, here's a link to a guy that kind of goes through installing this stuff and running it. All my stuff now is running on Windows 10. I originally had a virtual machine running Python and on Linux, and it to try to get all the stuff to work. So I kind of gave up on that. Or one of the things I was going to try to discuss with this system as well is that we need kind of a brain. We need kind of a message passing application bridge to hook all of this stuff together. That's another thing that I've been working on that can plug into, obviously, if we're going to be doing face recognition in here, as well as having a conversation, having the face recognition, the emotion recognition engine, communicating back to this kind of cortex, if you will, of applications. And basically some of it's Python, some of it's C sharp. Whenever I can get it all to work in C sharp, I'll do C sharp. If I can't do that, then I'll just do it all in Python. But the main thing is having apps that are running in a multi-threaded environment, and some things are running real fast and with multi-threaded. Some things are waiting for Google to return their stuff. Maybe some of this will run in Google's cloud. Just haven't gotten there yet. But the goal is to be able to fire up an app and have a conversation with a robot that can learn over time. So Raza is something I had been studying the past couple of months. It was a pain to get it installed. Some of the documentation is crappy, but I've gotten it down now to where I can get the thing installed and running on Windows 10. With that said, I've got a bunch of tabs up here if you could see them, and I'm just going to start clicking through them. One of the courses I'm taking right now was based off of Andrew Ng's classes, which is sequence models. I would strongly suggest people taking this course. This has a bunch of natural language understanding and word vectors and things like that in it. These general concepts that are going to be showing up in Raza. And it's just really turned out to be a fantastic course. I took an earlier one from another university out of Russia, and it was just a little too advanced for me. Anyway, there's a couple links on here, which is getting obviously TensorFlow. I'm going to use TensorFlow. I'm going to use Keras. You guys can kill yourself trying to make this stuff work in other frameworks, but I can't help you to try to get that stuff to work. This is Windows 10. I am not using Anaconda. I'm not using virtual environment. You cannot do that and use the CUDA toolkit. And I'm using TensorFlow GPU 1.9, and you have to very slowly and install the CUDA 9 and the CUDA drivers. And this is where's this other video at? Why do I not see it? Oh, okay. Yes, this is a guy, Mark J, that goes through and talks about getting TensorFlow. Don't worry about 1.4. Don't use Anaconda, but you got to have Python 3.6. But this is how you can get the GPU version running on your machine. And the reason why you want to do that is that it will cut your training down from 20 minutes to 20 seconds. And I've got a relatively slow GPU right now. So in this page right here, it goes through how to set this thing up. You have to do it to a T. The Mark also explains about it in here. What I ended up doing is literally uninstalling all my Python, uninstalling all my NVIDIA drivers, and literally layering this cake to where it's exactly what they say. It's the exact with their DLLs. But as soon as you do that, everything will work right. And I've got several different projects that I'm working on that all rely on TensorFlow GPU being installed and working correctly. One of them is the Unity ML agents. So what you've seen in the past where I've been doing OpenCV and TensorFlow and models inside of Unity, everything, all the stars have to align, meaning all the drivers and everything have to be perfect for this to work. And I just had an issue with this when I was trying to train one of these examples. It uses Python, and I can't use Anaconda. You can't use Docker on Windows 10 and get to the GPUs. It's all has to be bare metal raw. And I had issues with the TensorFlow Sharp that this kit uses. So I've got several different things that are all running that I expect them to work. So you got the link to the CUDA 9. This is the exact one that you need. They do have a TensorFlow 1.9 out, and 1.8 was broken, which broke training in this environment. I would strongly suggest people, if you're also interested in machine learning, to if you're not interested in game development, doesn't really matter. The Unity machine learning agents use some very sophisticated PPO models, and they are doing some really crazy robotics and artificial intelligence stuff inside of Unity. It's definitely something to keep your eye on. I do the same thing. Sometimes I take a break, from the chat bot, and I'll be in here looking at this stuff. So let's see here. One of the other things when we were talking about this system and having this robot, and we're having a conversation with it, we also want to have OpenCV running. We want to have OpenCV telling us that it knows who we are. It can recognize our face. That's some other stuff that's been coming up recently with a PyImage search. This is a gentleman, Adrian, that I'm subscribed to this channel. I would strongly suggest people take a look at what Dr. Adrian has. This is the other part of the code that I've been using. As you can see, dlib, facial landmarks, and this is the other piece of the equation that I want to do. He's currently not doing it, but I'm learning a lot from what he's got, and I have. It's just been phenomenal. So when we look at the picture of the little robot thing, we want the little robot thing to recognize he's got some examples. He's using DLib. He's also using facial recognition that's coming from some other guys, and they're using face embeddings, and it's really fascinating stuff. So I guess the other thing that's going on when we have this little chat bot, the as the dialogue progresses and we're sending voice to Google, it's coming back, it's going through our Rasa model. There's going to be points in time when the engine, the robot engine, whatever you want to call it, is going to get confused, and some of the things that you're talking about with it, it won't understand. The other thing is obviously the hot word or wake word situation. So this is a really good example of building a wake word engine using obviously TensorFlow and Keras. I've got this running on Windows 10 as well, and this is when I keep talking about kind of this little brain, this little neurological operating system that's going to be running, running and doing several things with the messages that are going to be coming from all over the place. You're going to have messages coming in, to this engine, and they're going to be potentially coming from the, a wake word, or text coming back, or the dialogue engine thinking that the conversation is complete, or you look away from the camera, things like that. You've got these events that are happening through here, that this is the other code that's going to be in here sending messages out, and or also consuming things coming in and then making decisions. So when we come back here, one of the things we may want to have is wake word detection, and there's just tons of stuff that's going on right now. What got me excited again was because I had no way of converting text to a decent synthesized voice. There was a lot of different engines out there that were just really crappy. Even Google had another API, their whatever it's called, their agent API, and you could send it text, and then it would respond back and tell you, the OK Google engine. That's different from this thing right here. The OK Google engine is sending text back, or I'm sorry, waves back, but it doesn't give you the text representation of what the agent is saying. So that's where Rasa comes in. We're already going to know what the response is going to be in text, and we can also send it to this API to get a high performance voice rendition. So I realize I'm rambling and there's all these tabs floating all over the place. For the people that just subscribed, I've got about 50 billion things going right now, and I'm not doing this full time. I do it 2-3 hours a night, obviously coming back to the school to learn more, and then getting everything set up. So hang in there with me, and hopefully I can get a bunch of things slapped together. I did have some people that were interested in and wanted to see the code for the OpenCV TensorFlow. Actually, it wasn't TensorFlow. It was different model format object detection inside of Unity, and it had been 5 or 6 months, and the code was all over the place, and it's still kind of all over the place. But I took the time to create the video and obviously clean the code up to where people could, potentially download it and get the thing to, possibly work. So that took a lot of energy, and again, I'm not getting paid to do this, but I am compassionate about it. I'm not begging for money or anything like that, but when I saw 100 subscribers, I said, well, I've got to put out these some kind of video and to let people know that I'm still obviously thinking about this stuff. Now, if there's any of this information that is something that people want to help out with, then that is great. If they have pieces of the puzzle, I'm going to try to put the architecture in place for this crude robotic message bus that I can upload and start sharing. I've got C# talking to Python code, but it's not in the format, multi-threaded format, which it needs to be. So right here, what we're looking at is this is all the CRUD that you have to install to get the majority of the stuff to work. I was also experimenting with deep fakes, which was down here. This is just kind of my list of how to get things installed and get things working. For Rasa right here, we don't even have the Rasa Core installed yet. That's the next thing I have to do. Rasa Core is the dialogue system that you need with the Rasa NLU, and their documentation is lame, or it's stale, and it's hard to get this stuff to work. So the deep fakes thing, if you're into that, unfortunately for me, I've got a 2 gig graphics card, NVIDIA 1050. It does not have enough memory to use the GPU to play around with it, which is kind of a bummer. So I'm going to have to eventually amp up and get a 1080 Ti, and that's just the this integration craziness that you run into trying to get all these systems to work. So the hot word or wake word, speech to text, that's you're doing locally, you're not sending it to Google. That uses some pretty sophisticated this thing called Librosa, and it's you to get all this stuff to work, you have to slowly but surely layer this cake. But like I said, I would strongly suggest to get your TensorFlow and GPU up and running. That will make any of your training go faster. Rasa uses Keras and the model, and it takes a little bit of time to train that. Now, I've got some other TensorFlow stuff I do just for fun, and I use Jupyter notebooks on some of this stuff, so I would strongly recommend doing that. So anyway, long-winded video, and craziness with all these tabs, but this information will probably be stale and not that good in the next 6 months to a year because of the TensorFlow and the CUDA installation stuff. So if you're still listening to me, thanks a whole bunch, and bear with me there's all this stuff, not all of it, but 90% of it. Uh, I'm trying to glue something together that is enjoyable, and this, you know, we're basically building a robot AI brain thing, and you know, right now these are a lot of the pieces that have to go into it. So that's it for now. Thanks for listening, and thanks for subscribing. And we'll be talking to you shortly.